We're going to talk about orienting yourself to a new space. Typically, you would do this with an orientation and mobility instructor. You would use them to help you familiarize yourself, but these are just some tips that you can do to ask them to help you um, get a better feel for what's around you. You can also, if you needed to explain to somebody you are with on how to orient you to a room, these are just some things that you can tell them that you would need to know. The first thing is when you are walking into a new space, use all of your senses. So we're going to be using the vision that we already have or that we have left, sounds that you can hear, like anything that's around you, or when you're walking, how the sound is echoing off the walls to feel what the enclosed space feels like or how open it is. We can also use our sense of touch. So we can feel the walls, we can use the cane to feel the feedback that the cane is giving us to what the floor might feel like. Temperature, you're sensing the temperature that the room is, the texture of everything that's around you. You can also touch objects with caution using the back of your hand that's around the room or around your space, so you can get a feel for the shape, the size, and then if you need to pick things up, you can feel the weight, like the weight of the door when you're pushing or opening it. So if you were to walk back in that space, you would realize that the door doesn't necessarily feel right, or the weight of the door isn't good, or it's going in instead of pulling out as it typically would. So it kind of gives you a better feel for where you are and if you're in the wrong spot. The next thing that you would use is your sense of smell. It's a really good use of knowing how close you are to an area, like a kitchen, bathroom, sometimes even a friend's house. Like you would know some friends, you can go, that's their scent. You know, each friend has their own scent. I know that sounds weird, but I feel like the people that I know, like there's a specific scent that they have, and you would know that you're in their room. Hospitals have a very specific smell to them, so knowing what the smell is in what room you're in. All these uses of senses are going to be called clues. They're not landmarks because they might not always be there, or they may change, or you could have a day where your hearing isn't as good, your vision isn't as good, your smell. There may not be objects to touch, or there may be a carpet down rather than a floor, but just know that these are kind of clues and not landmarks that you can use while you're traveling or trying to get a familiarization of the room. And remember that they might not always be there. When you're speaking with somebody who is guiding you into a new room, the number one thing that you would like to ask them is, describe to me what this room looks like. Tell me, is it a square? Is it on a diagonal when we walk in the door? Is the door in a corner? Is the door in the middle? Where am I in relation to all the walls? Is there chairs in here? Desks? Am I able to walk all around the room? Is there going to be obstacles where I walk? Are the tables square? Are they circles? How many chairs are around the tables? Is there aisles? All those things are really important details to know. If you were to be in a room that you would be going to quite often, the best route to go is to have somebody go there with you prior to actually going for the first time. And then starting off in either a grid line, so going up and down from back wall to front wall, starting off on the far left or the far right, and grid lining your whole way up and down. And then once you reach the other side, you're going to go back and forth. So you could go horizontal and then you're going to go vertical across the room. Another way is to start by the perimeter and work your way in as a spiral. Those are two systematic approaches that you can use to get around an area and familiarize yourself with the room. You'll also find obstacles using those systematic approaches to traveling around a room. And it'll be a better way to feel how big or how small a room is. The next thing is ask someone to describe to you everything as you're walking around the room. So even though you're familiarizing yourself all around the room, you still want somebody to explain if you miss, like, hey, there's a window that you're passing on your left. It's about a 6-foot by 4-foot window. There's blinds on the window. Then there's going to be another window about 8 feet down the wall from this window. Those little details that you may not necessarily register, but are important to know. What kind of flooring is there? Carpet, tile, wood, those details. What kind of wall is it? Is it a drywall? Is it one of those half carpet, half dry walls, or is it a weird textured wall, tile, whatever? Just knowing what is the room looking like. Sometimes if you want to know the color of the room, you can. Might not necessarily help, but if you want to know all those details, feel free to ask. When you are walking in a new space as well, maybe not necessarily a room, but in a building, ask what's going on. How are people walking? How, when you're walking down a hallway, you should generally walk on the right side always, but is everyone walking on the right side? Is it a thin hall? Is it a wide hall? When we're walking, how many doorways are there? So I know. Is there high traffic? Is there light traffic? Depending on the time of day, what does it look like? Where are the windows? Those kind of things. Even when you're walking and it may not necessarily be a room that you're trying to familiarize yourself with, but just knowing where you're at in a new building that you've never been in. The last thing that I want to talk about familiarizing yourself with a new space is it's okay to bump into things if you've never been there before. Don't be embarrassed. Don't get upset. Don't get mad at yourself. And typically an O&M instructor is going to let you bump into things, because if you don't bump into those things, you're never going to know they're there or what it feels like to bump into those things. Now, with certain, limitations, we would never let you run straight into a pole. But, if there's a trash can right in front of you along the wall, like, I'm going to let you try to hit it with your cane. And if your cane doesn't find it, I would probably let you run into the trash can, because if you don't run into that trash can, you are not going to realize that your cane skills are not doing what they're supposed to do. And you're also not going to know that that trash can is there, or how big that trash can is. Is it a tin trash can? Is it a wooden trash can? These are important things to know when you're walking. So it's actually important to make these mistakes prior to actually walking by yourself. So when you're by yourself and you may have a bad day in walking, when you run into those, you go, oh, that's that trash can. I know exactly where I'm at. Or if you get turned around and you accidentally find that trash can or a door or the frame or a table, you know that, oh, that's that table that's right there. I know where I'm at now. So just knowing that bumping into things is going to be more beneficial than hurtful for you in the beginning. So don't get mad at yourself and just let it happen. So that is a little bit of a introduction to new space orientation and room familiarization. There's a lot more that goes into depth of familiarizing yourself, but that's something that you would work with an O&M instructor specifically. These are just things that you can ask when you're walking with somebody that isn't really sure how to explain these things to you, or they don't realize that you need these things explained to you. So that's the way that you can tell them what you need and what you want and how to get around. Is there any questions, comments, concerns prior to moving on to our little workout for the day? No, we're looking good. All right. So we're going to start off with a little bit of stretching. You don't want to go right into an exercise without doing a little bit of stretching. Walking is okay. You don't really need to stretch before walking, because it is actually a warm-up for typically most exercises. Or if you are walking and you're going to be walking at a pretty quick pace, you can start off slower just to warm yourself up and then move to a quicker speed. So we're just going to start off with some stretching. some of the yoga that we already have worked on. I'm going to try my best to stay in this whole camera right now. So I'm right now on the floor because I want to get a full body stretch. So what I want you to do is stick your feet straight out in front of you, like we normally were when we were reaching for our toes. So my legs are straight out in front, my toes are pointed to the sky, my spine is stacked over top of my hips, and I'm going to reach up as far as I can to the sky like I'm reaching for a pole, and then coming down to my toes and reaching for my toes and pulling my chest to the floor and trying to pull my hand straight out in front of me to the back wall or towards my camera. Keeping that head in line with your spine and not slouching or pulling my shoulders really close to my ears. I'm keeping everything where it should be. And I'm really going to feel that stretch under my legs. What you can do to get a nice little warm up is going back and forth. So I'm pressing my chest down to the floor and pulling my head towards my feet with my hands. And then I'm slightly coming back up and then going back down and then holding that stretch again for 5 seconds. That way you're actually moving your body. So the most important thing during a warm up before you exercise is not to just do stationary stretches. It's actually to do more movement stretches. So that means not holding in one position for longer than about 5 to 7 seconds. You want to continually move your body because when you work out, you're not necessarily just staying still. So if we're just holding a stretch for a long period of time, that's great for yoga. But if you're going to be exercising and lifting weights and doing those kind of things, you need to make sure your body is ready to do those movements. So having more movement stretches than just static stretching. It's called dynamic. The next thing we're going to do is put your hand on the floor next to your right hip. So your right hand is on the floor next to your right hand is next to your right hip on the floor. And we're going to reach to the right side with our left hand and kind of leaning to the right. And then we're going to switch sides. So now my left hand is next to my left hip on the floor and my right hand is reaching to the left side over top of my head. And then I'm going to switch. Again, not holding for any longer than 5 seconds. I'm not slouching forward. I'm not reaching too far back. I'm keeping my spine kind of over top of my hips while I'm leaning. Making sure my posture is still in a perfect position. And I'm still switching about every 5 seconds. This also feels really good for those of you that know, and I hurt my back. This feels really good. I kind of did this and it really made my back feel better. All right, the next thing you're going to do, you're going to lift your leg up. You're going to put your left leg over top of your right leg in a bent position, and then you're going to lift your right knee and bend it so your left leg comes towards your body, and then you're going to slide your right leg back down and then pull it back up towards you. So I'm in a position where my left leg is bent and my right leg is bent, but my ankle is laying on top of my right knee, and I'm just pulling my right leg up with my heel sliding on the floor just to get that movement in my hips while bringing my left foot closer to my body. But my right foot isn't leaving the floor. Now we're going to switch. So my right leg is going to be bent and my right ankle sitting on top of my left knee. And now I'm going to pull my left knee towards my body while sliding my left heel on the floor. And then I'm going to go back down. Kind of doing a full-on movement. I should feel that stretch if you're on the left side now, it should be on your right hip if your right leg is crossed over your left leg. Now I'm moving through these stretches fairly quickly just because we've gone over some of them, just now that they're in a movement rather than just a static position. We're actually moving our body rather than just holding it for a long period of time. All right. Next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna have you stand up, and I hope you'll be able to see. There we go. All right, so I'm standing up, and what I'm gonna do, I'm reaching to the sky, the same thing that we did while we were on the floor. So I'm reaching up to the sky like there's a bar above my head, and then I'm bringing my body down and reaching for my toes, making sure that that body is still in a good stacked position. I'm not slouching my body too much, and I'm not yanking my body down. I'm kind of letting my weight of the top half of my body bring my body to the, bringing my top half of my body reaching to the floor. And then I'm going to come back up, reaching for the sky, and then slowly bringing my hands to the floor. My feet are on the floor, my legs are straight, and my hips are over top of my ankles. And then I'm reaching back up. Remember to do your breathing. I almost forgot to remind you of that. All right, good. All right, I feel pretty warm. I'm getting a little glisten on. So what we're gonna start off with today is a chair or wall push-up. So I have a chair that's a little bit lower than my waist height. You can do a push-up on the floor if you want a more advanced version, but I'm just gonna do a push-up on the chair that I have next to me. This is a really great way to still get your push-ups in. If you have a lot of trouble maintaining form in a push-up, a lot of individuals don't realize that even though they're doing a push-up, it's not necessarily a proper push-up. So I'm gonna grab my chair. It's directly in front of me. You won't be able to see it, but so my hands are about shoulder width apart on my chair. And what I'm doing is I have my back and hips in a straight line. So I'm not pushing my backside up too high to the sky where my back is kind of parallel with the floor. I'm on a diagonal. So I'd say my body right now is about at a 45-degree angle as opposed to the floor and the wall. So I'm in between both of those. And then what I'm gonna do is I have just about my toes on the floor and my heels are lifted off. My shoulders are over top of my wrists. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push my body down and I'm gonna drive my elbows back towards my hips as my chest is going towards the floor. All right. And I'm gonna keep my butt from, or my stomach from going towards the floor or my backside pressing too high up to the sky. So you want to keep that body in a nice straight line, and I'm going to go down, pressing my elbows back towards my hips and my chest to the chair, and then I'm going to come back up. Now, if I was on a wall, it would be the same exact thing, except my hands are going to be at about shoulder height or a little bit lower, and they're going to be flat against the wall. And I'm going to be doing the same thing, except now my elbows are going to be kind of going past my rib cage rather than pressing back towards my hips. And if you're on the floor, it's the same thing where your hands are flat on the floor, your back is in line, so your backside isn't too far up towards the sky and your belly isn't too far close to the floor. And I'm going to be pressing my chest to the floor and then pushing back up. So I'm letting my body go down to the floor, but I'm not just plopping my body down to the floor and just not using my muscles to slowly bring myself down. I'm taking my time to hold myself up and slowly bring my chest to the floor and then pressing myself back up without letting my back arch either way. Now, when we're doing push-ups, we would do about 10, sorry, I'm not in the camera. We would do about 10 push-ups 3 times. The last push-up in the set of 10 would be a 5-second hold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what that would look like. And then on your own time, you can do it 3 times through. Because of time, I won't be able to do the entire span of the workout within this video. So my hands, I'm gonna do on the chair. So my hands are on the chair. My body is at a 45-degree angle in relation to the floor and the wall. Everything is in line. So my spine, if I was standing up straight, my spine would be in line with my hips, and my hips would be directly over top of my ankles. And just my toes are on the floor right now. My shoulders are over top of my wrists. And then I'm letting my chest go towards the floor while I'm driving my elbows back towards my hips. And then I'm coming back up. Making sure that when you're pressing back up, a lot of individuals let their stomach sink down to the floor when they're pressing themselves back up, and kind of press up with their shoulders first, when you want to bring your whole body up using your arms. So we're going down to the chair and back up. So that's 2, 3, 4, and making sure you're breathing through each and every push-up and you're not holding your breath. That breathing is going to be very important for each and every exercise. So that's 6, 7, 8, 9, and then this last 10th one, we're gonna go down and hold for about 5 seconds. So I'm going down. My chest is not on the chair. It's hovering over top of the chair, and everything is in line, and you should feel the burn, and then we're gonna press back up. During those push-ups, you're really gonna feel a lot of the strength coming from the back of your arms. Those are called the triceps. So that's where a lot of your strength is gonna be coming from, along with your chest. The next thing that we're gonna do is called a squat hold. You can use a wall, or you can do it in place. When you're on a wall, you're gonna want your feet about 1.5 feet to 2 feet away from the wall. And you're gonna put your back straight up against, up and down along the wall, and bend your knees at a 90-degree angle. I'm gonna do it because I'm not near a wall. I'm just gonna do it in the camera. So what I'm doing is my feet are still about a little wider than hip distance. So they're about at shoulder width apart, maybe a little bit thinner than that. And then I'm gonna bring my backside to the floor and have my knees bent at a 90-degree angle. Now I'm leaning forward a little bit because I don't have a wall, but if you have trouble doing a squat without leaning too far forward, then I don't recommend doing it without a wall. So I'm going down, and for those of you that can see, my chest is almost facing the wall in front of me and not the floor. My knees are not going too far over my toes, and my back is not arched. It's going straight up and down, so I'm going down. And I'm holding this position for about 10 seconds. You want your head facing forward, so if you're leaning too far forward or you feel any part of your rib cage along your knees, if you're not using a wall, then you're probably bending too far forward. So you want to make sure that if that's the case, you're putting your body against a wall. So we're going to go down and hold that position. You should really feel a lot of sting in the top part of your legs. My knees are bent at about a 90-degree angle. Not letting those knees go over top of those toes. They're allowed to not be stacked completely on top of your ankles. That's okay. Just make sure that they're still not crossing your toe line. And then we're going to bring it back up. So if you're on a wall, you're probably going to have to walk your feet out, in and out just a little bit to make sure that you're in the correct position. But if you're just doing it standing, that's okay. You don't need to move at all, just making sure that you're using your core muscles to keep your body straight up and down. Now for that one, we would do about a 10-second hold 3 times, and then you're going to take a break. So you're going to go down, hold for 10 seconds, come back up, go down, hold for 10 seconds, come back up, down, hold for 10 seconds, come back up, and then take a break, and then do that whole thing 3 times through. So that was round 1, and then we got 2 more rounds after that. Push-ups, 10, 3 times through with a 5-second hold during the last push-up. So during the 10th push-up, there's a 5 to 10-second hold. The next thing we're going to do is called a bag high pull. So I have a box, which is going to be about the same thing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it in front of me. I'm in a standing position. Feet are hip width apart. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring, the box is about at my arms are straight down, and the box is, it's kind of just like I'm holding a box in front of me. My arms are straight. And then what you're going to do is you're going to bring the box or bag up to your chest and pressing your elbows out towards the walls on your left and right. So right now my arms and my forearms are parallel to the floor, and my elbows are each pointing to the left and right. And then I'm going to bring that box back down, and then I'm going to pull the box back up. If you have a bag, you can be holding the strap of the bag and pulling it up to the top of your chest, right below your chin, and then letting it go back to the floor. I recommend using a bag because it's a little bit easier to hold than a box, and you can actually add more weight to a bag than you can to a box to have a better grip on it. So that's just something that you have around the house. Unless you have weights, you can use a weight, but I'm just saying a bag or a purse because most people have one of those laying around and they can put some books in it to add a little weight. So bringing that box all the way up below your chin, elbows pointed out, and then letting that box go back to the floor. Now, when we are bringing the box up, it's a nice gliding pull. You're not like driving it up and like swinging your hips. You want to keep your body pretty still and just moving those arms. This is a good little shoulder and back work that we're getting. And then when we bring this to the floor and let it go back down, we're not just dropping our arms. You're slowly letting your hands go back to the floor so your arms are now at your side. Don't just let that bag fall. You want to make sure that you're using those arms both ways for the push, for the pull, and it's almost like you're pushing the bag to the floor and not letting it fall. So we're going to do 15 of these 3 times through. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and when you bring it up, you almost want to get like a little bit of a hold, like a 2-second hold in when you bring it up, and then let it go back down. That hold is going to create the most amount of tension at the best point of your lift. And I lost count, so I'm just going to say that's 7, 8, 9, still breathing, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Good. That one is no hold at all, just bringing it up and down, making sure that both directions, whatever you are pulling and letting go to the floor, you are maintaining perfect control of both ways. The next thing is going to be really good for a lot of people who are walking quite often with their cane, because when we're walking, our calves are doing a lot of work and they're actually helping our toes stay in line. So if you get a nice little calf workout, it's going to help you walk better and walk more in a straight line. So I have 2 exercises that you can do to work your calves, the back of your calves and the front of your calves. So the first one is my feet are going to be directly below my hips, and my hands are going to be on my hips. And then all I'm doing is just pressing my body up onto the balls of my feet and then letting my heels just tap the floor and going straight back up. So I'm not putting my feet at a flat position between every single calf raise, but I'm going up, I'm holding for about 2-3 seconds. Then once my heels tap the floor, I'm going right back up. Now, when we're doing these, you want to make sure that the entire balls of your feet are maintaining perfect contact on the floor the whole time. So that means you don't want to be rolling your ankles too far out or bringing your ankles too far in, that you feel more pressure on one part of your foot over the other. So you want even control over top all of your toes and the balls of your feet the entire time. Also making sure that your heels are directly behind your toes. They're not turned in and they're not pressed too far out. That's going to help you maintain that perfect control over your feet and making sure that your ankles are not rolling. This is going to help you while you're walking in case you lose balance, to maintain that perfect balance while you're walking. If you trip over a curb, it's going to make those ankles stronger and those calves stronger. So we're going to do 20 of these calf raises, just making sure that your heels are just tapping on the floor and you're going right back up, maintaining a good balance. So that was 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I feel burning in the back of my legs, all from my calves all the way up to my back side. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 3 more, 18, 19, 20. Now, that's for the back of the calves. Now we're going to do something for the front of the calves. This is going to be a little bit more of a movement. So what you would need to do is, if you have trouble seeing what's in front of you, if you are total blind, you may either A, need a cane to do this, or glide your hand along a wall. I would recommend always gliding your hand along a wall regardless, just to make sure that you're not running into anything. And having your cane on you if you are not in a familiar spot or you think people are moving stuff around a lot. So what you're going to do is you're going to start from one end of the wall and you're going to walk to the other end of the wall, but my toes are going to be pointed up to the sky. So almost just my heels are on the floor. And I'm just walking on the heels of my feet while my toes are pulling up towards my body. So they're almost going up towards the ceiling and pulling inward. That way I'm flexing, which means putting tension on the front of my calves and walking on just the balls of on the heels of my feet. The wall is going to help you know where you're at and when you hit the edge of the wall. So you're just going to keep walking straight all the way till you hit the edge of your wall, and then you're going to turn around and do the same thing walking back. Now the same way with the calf raises, I know we're walking this time. So we're going to want to take 20 steps back and forth with my toes pointed up to the sky, and I'm just walking on the balls of my feet, trying to keep a nice gentle, you're not just stomping on the floor with your heels. You're keeping your toes pointed forward in front of you, and you're not pushing them out too far or bringing them in too far, pointed inward. So you just want to make sure your toes are pointed forward in the direction that you're going, and your toes are curled up towards your body. So we're going to do 20 steps just like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, turn around, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. All right. Same thing with those as the calf raises. You want to make sure that you're having perfect contact all around each side of your heel onto the floor, so you know you're working your entire calf and you're maintaining that balance in your ankles. This is an extremely great exercise for those that feel like they veer too far to the left or too far to the right, or they feel like they lose their balance in their ankles, or they feel like they twist their ankles a lot. This is a really great exercise to strengthen those legs from the knees below, to keep your balance and keep your straight line of travel. That's probably one of my favorite exercises for those that are walking quite often. It has actually helped a lot of people that have sprained ankles quite often. It helps bring their ankles back to the perfect strength that they need to be at in order to walk properly and get rid of some of their pain. All right, we got 2 more exercises that we're going to do. and they're both going to be core exercises. I know we went over some of the core last time, but I wanted to add these into a workout so you could get an idea of what a full workout would feel like. So we're going to go over a plank. Now, there's two different ways that you can plank. You can either do a plank on your hands, or you can do a plank on your forearms. So what I'm going to start off with is the plank on your hands. So what I have here is my hands, just like the push-up, are directly below my shoulders. And then my feet are going to be behind me with my body in a, I'm going to go this way, with my body in a perfect line. My stomach is not too close to the floor and my butt isn't too high to the sky. You want to make sure that your body is in a perfect straight line. And you're just holding this position. Now, you're probably going to hear my voice start to shake because I am holding it and tensing up my abs, which is making it a little bit harder for me to talk and hold it at the same time. And you're going to want to keep breathing. Now, what we're going to do is you're going to hold this anywhere from between 15 seconds to 30 seconds. For those that don't do a lot of core exercises, 15 seconds is going to be your best friend. And if you do about 15 seconds, you're going to want to do this 4 times through. If you're doing it for 30 seconds, you can do it about 2 to 3 times through. I recommend 3, but if you do get tired after the first 2, then maybe you can even split up a third one into 2 15 seconds. So before I actually do the exercise, I'm going to show you it's the same thing on your forearms. Now, most people, when we do a plank, they want to actually clasp their hands together in front of them. But in order to get the most out of your plank, you're going to put your hands flat onto the ground. So it's going to go hands, then directly behind your hands and your wrists are going to be your elbows. And then my elbow is going to be bent at a 90-degree angle, and then my shoulders are going to be over top of my elbows. That way you're getting the most out of your plank, because if you bring your hands together, that's actually creating more structure and pressure onto your shoulders. Then when you put your hands apart, you're able to get the most out of your plank in your midsection. So now I'm going to lift my body up, and my shoulders are over top of my elbows. My hands are directly in front of my elbows, and my hands are flat on the floor. Now, you're going to want to squeeze your backside together. So you're tensing up those glute muscles. And then my stomach is not sinking too far down to the floor, and my backside isn't pressed too up to the sky. That's why I'm squeezing my glutes together. That way I can hold myself in that perfect straight line. Now this one, when you go down to this position, is going to be a little bit harder for you to hold for a long period of time if you've never done a plank before. So I recommend starting off with that push-up hold plank and then moving forward to that elbow plank. We're going to do ours for about 15 seconds, so depending on what you feel most comfortable with is what you're going to do. So I'm going to go on my forearms, and I'm going to hold for about 15 seconds. So here we go. I feel like I'm going to be dying a little bit because it's really hard to talk and do this at the same time. So I have my elbows below my shoulders, my wrists directly in front of my elbows, and my hands flat on the floor at about shoulder width apart. And then I am pressing my body up, squeezing my glutes together, and having my body in a perfect line. And that's been about 5 seconds since I explained that. And we got about 5 more seconds now. And relax. So 15 seconds seems a lot longer when you're holding it than when you're just talking for 15 seconds. But again, if you're doing that exercise 4 or 5 times through for 15-second holds, or about 2 to 3 times through when you're doing 30-second holds. If you have trouble holding a plank, on your forearms, go up into the push-up position, maintaining that perfect alignment of your body so nothing is sinking too far down or pressed up to the sky. Now, the last thing we're going to do is our crunches. So we did these last time where we did some core exercising. So again, my feet are perfectly planted on the floor. My knees are bent. Whatever you're most comfortable with is the distance of your heels to your backside, the distance between those. Just depends on what your preference is. Now, what I'm going to do is if you have trouble sitting the whole way up, so a crunch would be, you can sit the whole way up if you want a full workout, but what you're going to do is if you try to sit up, you're going to go and bring your body to about a 45-degree angle. Now, that's a perfect ideal crunch. That is really hard if you haven't worked out or are not working out on a regular basis. Even for me, it's a really hard crunch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the modified version of a crunch. So my hands are not going to be behind my head, because if I put my hands behind my head, I'm actually just going to be pulling my head down rather than pushing my chest up. So when we do a crunch, you're going to put your right hand onto your left shoulder and then your left hand onto your right shoulder. If you can't get them all the way up to your shoulders, that's fine. Just cross them over your chest. And then I'm going to lift my chest up to the sky. So I'm getting my shoulder blades off the ground, but my head is still in the same alignment with the rest of my body as it was when I was laying on the floor. You don't want to see the wall in front of you when you're doing a crunch. You want to make sure you're still looking at the ceiling with your head. So my body is now going up towards the ceiling, and then it's going to go back down. And up towards the ceiling and back down. So right now, the only thing that's on the floor is my feet, my backside all the way up to my head. And then when I bring my body up for the crunch, right now about midway at my spine, down to my backside is on the floor. And then my whole foot is on the floor. And I'm going up and then bringing it back down. Now for a crunch, you can either just go up and down, nice and slow. You're not just letting your body drop like I told you in the push-ups and everything else. You're letting your body you're controlling your movement back down to the ground. And we're going to do about 15 of those. I just did 3, but we're going to start again. So we're going to go up, 1, 2, 3, controlling that movement on the downward roll. 5, 6, 7, 8, making sure that head doesn't face forward. It's going straight up to the ceiling and staying in line with the rest of your spine. That was 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Now, if at towards the end you could barely get the rest of your body off the ground, that's fine. As long as you're just trying to get those shoulder blades off the floor is the best you can do as a crunch, that's totally fine. That's still going to give you the tension in your abdomen muscles. So that's the little workout that I have. I'm going to quickly go over what we talked about. First is 5 minutes of dynamic stretching, which means no stretches being held longer than about 5 seconds. And you're doing the stretch back and forth and repeating it. Ooh, I just ate my hair 10 times. I need a drink of water. The next thing was a chair, wall, or floor push-up, which was 3 times through of 10 push-ups with a 10-second hold on the 10th push-up. My elbows were driving back towards my hips for the floor and the chair push-ups. And for the wall push-ups, my elbows were just kind of gliding along my rib cage. Regardless of where you're doing your push-up, the last one is a 10-second hold. The next thing we did was a squat hold. So you do 10-second hold of a squat 3 times through. The squat is going to be a 90-degree angle from your calves to your thighs and your knees are bent, making sure that your knees don't go over your toes, and they can be in line with your ankles or a little bit in front of your ankles. If you're doing a squat without a wall, you can make sure that your body isn't bent too far forward where you can feel almost your rib cage on your legs. Making sure your chest is still facing up and towards the wall. Excuse me. And then if you're along the wall, you want your feet at about 1.5 to 2 feet away from the wall, and your whole entire back is flat up against the wall, and your knee is bent at a 90-degree angle. Your feet are going to be a little bit further than hip width apart when you're doing these squat holds. We did the bag high pulls, where your arms started at a straight position holding a bag, and then you're pulling that bag up to below your chin. So your elbows are bent and my left and right elbow are facing away from me, but my arm and my forearm are parallel to the floor. And I'm going to bring that up, and then when I let it go back down, I'm making sure that I don't just let the bag fall. I am controlling that movement on the downward. We're going to do 3 rounds of 15 pulls or repetitions. The next thing we talked about is calf raises and front calf walks. The calf raises are where your balls of your feet are firmly planted on the floor, and you're raising your entire body up from your heels all the way up to your head, and you're letting your body raise to the ceiling and then bringing your body back down, tapping your heels on the floor and going straight back up. The important thing to remember with this is your balls of your feet are maintaining perfect alignment or pressure onto the floor throughout, and not letting your feet roll inward or outward too much, or your toes aren't pointed in or pointed out too far. Then we did our heel walks, where our toes were pointed up towards the sky, and we are using the wall to guide us and having a cane if we needed to protect in front of our body, making sure we're not running into anything. So we're walking on our heels, toes pointed up towards the sky, making sure that our heels are planted on the floor and not rolling inward or outward, and our toes are not pointed in or pointed out too far. Those are 20. So you raise your calves 20, your body onto the balls of your feet 20 times, and then you're doing 20 steps of the heel walks 3 times through. Then the next thing we talked about is the plank. You can either do a plank with your hands planted on the floor, or you can do a plank with your forearms on the floor. Remembering that if you're doing a plank on your forearms, that your hands aren't clasped together like you're praying, but your hands are planted flat on the floor in line with your elbows, and your elbows are right below your shoulders. Another thing to remember when we're doing a plank is our body is in perfect alignment and not letting our stomach sink to the floor or a backside pointed too high towards the ceiling. It's in an alignment that we would be in if we were standing. If you're doing in the push-up position, your hands are directly below your shoulders, and you're still in that same alignment as you would be for your forearm plank. The last thing that we did was a crunch. So like we talked about the last time, the crunch is bringing your body up off the floor from about midway of your spine and then bringing it back to the floor. Not holding your head, because you don't want to pull your head, you want to pull your body. So you had your hands crisscrossed over your chest, either on your shoulders or along your chest, and then lifting your body off the floor, still in alignment, pressing your chest up towards the sky, and then bring your body back down, always controlling the movement of the up and the down. So all these, regardless of what you're doing, you're making sure that you're staying in that perfect position the entire time and not losing that form. So you always want to make sure that spine and body is in line at all times. And if it isn't and you drop it, that's fine. Just make sure you stop. Don't go any further, because you don't want to hurt yourself by doing the incorrect form of each of these movements. The crunches are 15 crunches 3 times through. So that is my spiel of your workout and the O&M techniques. Is there any questions, comments, anything? Nothing. All righty. Well, then that concludes today. Thank you for joining.